Hi, everybody. Welcome back to an episode of Big Apple Hockey. I know it's been a couple weeks without us, and we're happy just to be back. It's so great to be back. All right, I am your host, Mark Williams, and I went nowhere special recently, nowhere at all, and I am joined by the man who can't score on Ilya Sorokin either, Mr. Anthony Larocco.
I'm happy to get back doing a show here. A couple of weeks without it, so I'm very excited for it. And hey, beautiful weather means hockey playoffs around the corner. Great time of year.
Yeah, before you know it, you're going to be doing some shows outside shirtless again. So, I mean, it's and again, sorry guys, I've been doing a little bit of traveling the last couple weeks. We've been trying to get our schedule back in order, and but fortunately, if you're a Ranger fan, you've been watching the final buzzer with John Falkowski. But we're good, and that's where we're going to jump in with right now with the New York Rangers because Anthony gave his take. By the way, if you haven't seen his trade deadline recap, he talked about the circumvention of the salary cap and stuff like that needs to be addressed. You can watch the final buzzer after most Ranger games with John. This is the Rangers record right now. Anthony, it was a big game last night. It was the Rangers versus the Hurricanes. If the Rangers won, they were tied for first place.
Yeah.
And they lost 4-2. There's a 4-point lead now with 9 games remaining. Looks like Carolina is going to win the division. Chris Kreider scored his 50th goal of the season. He's the 4th New York Ranger to do so. But, and that's also, by the way, the Chiron that I should have put up when I was talking about that. Well, I'm a little bit rusty, guys. Anthony, what are your thoughts on the Rangers post-trade deadline?
I mean, I think they addressed a lot of the needs. I know Tyler Mott is out now with an injury, but I like what he would have brought to the team going into the playoffs. You know, he's a good penalty killer. He has a propensity to score shorthanded goals. He's got speed, and he's just your prototypical bottom six player. Not big in stature, but, he plays a big game. And then obviously the addition of Andrew Kopp helps solidify him. Again, it gave some a little grittier, a little bit more scoring because Kopp can chip in that way. So I thought Chris Drury did a great job. I think they could have shot a little higher than Braun with the defenseman, especially being that, he was scratched a couple of games. I'm not his biggest fan, but overall, I thought Drury did a really good job in trying to add to the Rangers and give him the best shot possible to give him go on a deep run here. But I like the moves they made.
I gotta say, I think he hit a grand slam. Not even a home run; it was a grand slam.
Yeah.
Getting Tyler Mott is going to be tremendous. Now he's out for the next 3 weeks. I'm not sure if they released the official timetable.
Mm-hmm.
You know the way the NHL is; they're about as secretive as North Korea or Lou Lamoriello, even in trying to give out injury news.
Yeah.
But so you get him when he comes back. That fourth line is going to be tremendous. I just still look at this team. This is my personal opinion. I think if Kopp slides down to the third unit, then you're talking about something really special. But he's on that second unit, and that second unit has been great. So let's see how that works out. Frank Vadrano has been perfect for that Kreider line.
I forgot about him. He's been really good. And he's a bottom six player for sure, but he can in a pinch, I think, play in a top six, not for an extended period of time. But he is able to do so, and he's chipped in. So the Rangers, I thought even from the beginning of the year, they needed those grittier players who could really play in the bottom six, but also maybe move up in a pinch. I thought, compared to other teams in the past, their bottom six was surely lacking, and Drury did a really great job. So, but no, Vatrano's been great. He's been absolutely great for them. And for the costs, I mean, how could you not love that deal?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. The only thing I forgot to look up before I got started on this is if they have him on a contract for another season. I think he's a UFA, but he's not going to command huge dollars. So don't worry about that.
No.
I still think you got to figure out what you're doing with Lafreniere and Kakko, but moving Lafreniere back to the left wing has been a tremendous addition as well.
Yeah.
So, getting to the last night's game though, the Rangers nearly went up 2-0. They end up going up 2-1. Both Russian goaltenders kind of had a soft goal last night. The one that Svechnikov banked off of Shesterkin. I think it's because he got bumped right there. For Toronto hit in the post. Certainly that would have given the Rangers a 2-0 lead at the time. But what do you really take away from that game last night?
I mean, it's hard to take away just from one game, but I will say, just in general, I think I should say actually, with the exception of Georgiev playing the Hurricanes, Shesterkin has struggled a little bit against Carolina. And listen, sometimes for whatever reason, there's just certain teams that goalies either don't play well or they own. Like for instance, Varlamov, when he plays the Rangers, the guy turns into like Superman. Those are just situations that happen across the league. Some matchups aren't good for certain goalies and teams, but overall, I mean, I don't like the matchup the Hurricanes bring in general for the Rangers or really any team. The Hurricanes play that weird style that they throw the puck at the net from anywhere. They're not afraid to just throw the puck on net. They come at you at waves. They suffocate the puck carrier. They play a speed game. They're a hard team to play against. So it's not just the Rangers. I think Carolina is a nightmare for a lot of teams, but more specifically, yes, I think the Rangers aren't a good matchup for them. Really, for my money, the only team. Well, actually, no, that is the only team in the Metro I put clearly ahead of the Rangers, the Hurricanes. I think that they could beat the Penguins in a 7-game series. I think they could beat the Capitals in a 7-game series, and luckily for them, it's going to be impossible for the Rangers to meet the Hurricanes in the first round. So that's the good news. The bad news is, they might have to go through them at some point if the Rangers get out of the first round. But overall, yeah, I don't like the matchup that they present for the Rangers. But again, though, the Rangers don't have to worry about it for at least round one. So that's the saving grace there.
The way that I would categorize it would be if this was a fight, like I don't know if you want to use UFC or boxing, we'll just use the term fight card. The first round, the Rangers bludgeoned them but didn't get a goal out of it. Then in the second round, they got a goal, and then somehow Carolina came back even because the shots and the Carolina just wasn't threatening. They get one good break on Jacob Trouba kind of pinching up on, I think it was Sebastian Aho, then got it to Seth Jarvis, goes in, backhander, and that's it. But then broken play, and Jordan Stahl just gets it in the back of the net. But that's about it. That's I mean, that's going to be a 7-game series. It's going to be a great 7-game series. And I can't wait for that. That's what's going to look like. It's going to be inevitable. Just going to address once again Chris Kreider scoring his 50th goal of the year, and I had a great joke I was going to post for this, but I had a hockey game at the time, so and then they lost, so I couldn't do that. But I did go kind of from 6 to midnight, realizing that Chris Kreider has accomplished what every Ranger fan has ever thought he could ever do, and I can't be happier for the guy because his name's going to come up again in another discussion Anthony and I are going to have later. But this was the culmination of everything that's been happening, and he still has a month to play in the season. He might get the 55, which is going to be huge.
It's realistic.
It's just kind of sad that it didn't come in a loss. I mean, sorry, that it came in a loss.
Yeah,
that's the only thing that was bad about it.
Yeah,
but we've got a lot of show for you guys today, so we're just going to be firing through a lot of these topics. I already see some great comments over here. Yeah, what a great shot. Yeah, Hank also struggled against the Canadians. But guys, we're going to be going through a lot more questions because we've had so much jammering our lines for 2 weeks. If you haven't, subscribe to us and leave us a like. So we are going to move on and talk about the other team in New York because Anthony, the Islanders' slim playoff hopes. They're hanging by a thread. I put up the tragic number, because I think it's 5. If Washington gets 5 points, it's over.
Yeah.
And Pittsburgh gets 3. So, but speaking about that, the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Islanders defeated them in a shutout last night. Josh Bailey and Zach Parise scored twice.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like lightning striking. First off, it should be a good encouragement. Zach Parise for next season. He's under extension.
13 goals for Zach Parise. You know what? At 37 years old, for league minimum, you take that and run. I said before the beginning of the year, 15 goals for Parise should be the expectation. And despite his really slow start, where it didn't look like he was going to be able to reach that, 13, he probably will finish more than 15. He might get 17. But whatever it is, he's been great. So I have no issues with Zach Parise.
Yeah, and you know something, if it's just the Islanders got to get him on a lower line, and then it's a home run next year. That's all they got to do. But by the way, that's also going to be a discussion in the bar talk as well. But as you watch through those highlights and through that game, give me your thoughts on that save Ilya Sorokin made on Jake Gensel. He had another one earlier in the game in the second period, too.
I mean, that saved the game. What was impressive about that was that deflection from Gensel came so close to him, so in tight. So he didn't have much reaction time to get the glove up there. But that was an incredible save. He's made numerous of them throughout the season. He's a lot of people compare Shesterkin and Sorokin. Shesterkin's definitely better positionally, but Sorokin has drawn comparisons to Hasek from his athleticism for a reason. His reaction times are just incredible, and he just reacted real quick and flashed the glove. But yeah, that was a huge save.
That was an incredible save, and it ended up sealing the game for them. By the way, thank you, New York Islanders, from the New York Rangers, because they kept Pittsburgh back 1 point.
Yeah,
and that the first off, by the way, what's a bigger news, that save or the fact that the Islanders got a shootout goal?
yeah.
And it's not many things. But Anthony, by the way, I was talking to you about this before we went on, and I have a friend of mine, huge Rangers fan, but sometimes he's not so informed. And he said Ilya Sorokin couldn't start for half the teams in the league. I'm going to reverse this question for you. How many teams would jettison their current goalie right now for Ilya Sorokin? And by the way, Ranger fans, don't worry, we're not one of them.
I mean, this friend you're talking about, he's the clear definition of a homer.
Yes.
And clearly that just shows he doesn't know much about any teams outside of the Rangers, really. But no, Ilya Sorokin is elite, plain and simple. For my money, this season, he's been the second best goalie in the NHL, bar none, behind his good friend Igor. And now, if you, in a fantasy world, because you have to, if you take out into consideration contracts, because obviously, hypothetically, certain teams wouldn't even be able to move their goalie for him if they wanted to. But if you take out contracts and such aside, I mean, I think it was 32 teams in the league. I would say at least 28 of them would probably get rid of their starting goalie for Ilya Sorokin.
I think it's easier to list the teams that wouldn't.
And gun to my head right now, like the obvious answer is Shesterkin. The Rangers have no reason to make that move. Other than that, I mean, Freddie Anderson. I mean, the guy's having a good year. He's a good goalie, but I mean, he's an older guy. There's really no Igor Shesterkin. Yeah. Yes. Vasilevsky would be another one. Vasilevsky, because what's funny about Vasilevsky is he's not in the upper echelon of statistics this year, but for my money, he's still the big time money goalie if you want in a game. I mean, Christ, look at last playoffs. Every win the Lightning had to close out a series, the guy had a shutout. So
his last 5 series wins are shutouts.
Yeah. So he's still one of the best. So yeah, I mean, Tampa, the Rangers, not many other.
Yeah.
Ilya,
I mean, I'm having trouble. I'm having trouble trying to think of other ones.
Yeah.
That's why it's like you're talking about 29 teams that would get rid of their goalies.
I mean, the guy is second in save percentage, fourth in GAA, 6th in shutouts. and he's lost 3 shutouts within the final 2 minutes of a game. He lost one 30 seconds left in Chicago. He got the other night in Carolina. He lost one with 58 seconds left. There are a couple others where he lost it within the last 2 minutes of the game. The guy could easily have 9 or 10 shutouts. And again, if you look at his body of work and what he's done
equipment, Bassy,
this season, compared to all the goalies around him are on great playoff teams. He's on a team that's 15 points out of a playoff spot, and he still is where he is right now in those statistical categories. I mean, come on. Come on.
Anthony, I got Chris Frost's question right here for you. If the Islanders did pull off the miracle, do you start Varley against the Rangers?
They had their chance this week and they kind of blew it. But in this fantasy world, I mean, I know Varley's been good against the Rangers, but look at the game Sorokin played against the Rangers last, where he made that incredible stick save, and he played really, really well. But I would say no. I mean, you would have to go Sorokin, but knowing Trotz, he loves his veterans, so maybe he would go Varlamov. But
it's Sorokin's net from now on. That's the easiest way to say it. And we had that similar conversation years ago, Henrik Lundqvist versus Team X, where it was, do you start Henrik versus this team? No, you obviously start Henrik.
Yeah.
He's the good one. There was a great comment earlier in here about Henrik always had trouble against the Canadians. You know who he beat in the Canadians? Do you know he beat twice in the playoffs? The Montreal Canadiens. Yeah. And one time, Carey Price is totally healthy. Mm-hmm. And don't get me started on Dmitry Amelin tripping Chris Kreider. So,
and I'm glad I sent you that tweet earlier. I'm glad that Dave Pagnotta sent out that tweet today, just talking about where Sorokin is in the statistical categories for goalies, because guys just he's not getting the love that he deserves in terms of being talked about as one of the Vezina finalists. I know the Vezina trophy voting, I don't know if it's a little different. It's actually voted. It's not by writers. The Vezina is picked by GMs, and listen, I know I'm an Islander fan, and I'm pretty non-partial. I say it how it is, but I don't know how you look at it and seeing that he has better statistics than some of these guys that are on playoff teams, and he's on a bad team, and yet he's performing a lot better. I mean, for me,
that's where you weight it a little bit more.
For me, that's a no-brainer. I mean, the guy is a Vezina finalist, but we'll see how it shakes out. But
that kind of reminds me of 1994, John Van Beesbrook, who was nominated for the Hart Trophy a finalist. I always say nominated, but he was a finalist for the Hart Trophy. And the Panthers didn't make the playoffs, but they were within shouting distance for an expansion team. That was something that was unheard of. And look, we'll use the term that we're still fans. I'm not going to hide any of my stuff that's right behind me. But the truth is, we're also pundits too. We could be a little bit more impartial. I mean, we carry our hearts on our sleeves, but our opinions are on the other sleeve too.
Yeah.
So, Anthony, I just got to run off 2 more questions just about the Islanders, and then we're going to go over to the bar talk. Josh Bailey had 2 goals last night. What's his future with the New York Islanders?
Very polarizing player on Islander boards. He gets a lot of hate that frankly is a little too far. 35 points for a guy that makes $5 million a year, but is actually owed only $3 million in real dollars. That's really not bad. And I know some people, Islander fans, say, "Oh, it'll take a lot for Lou to move him," but he moved the corpse of Ladd, who was a far worse player than Bailey, and still did it. So I think Josh Bailey will be shopped in the offseason, and there are a lot of teams like Ottawa, Buffalo, Arizona who are going to need to reach the cap floor that will gladly take his contract. And yeah, they're not going to get anything really back. They'll probably get but even if they got a 3rd-round pick, it accomplishes what the Islanders need. It's just accrue even more cap space. So, so that's Bailey. That's what I think of Bailey. I think he's a prime candidate to be moved in the offseason.
Even with the 2 years remaining on his deal, they're gonna be able to get him moved, or is it going to cost them something a little bit more like draft picks? Or I don't want to go as high as Anthony Beauvillier. That's
No,
not
I
going
mean,
to.
look,
That's
look
not.
what I
That's
just
too high.
said. Andrew Ladd could barely play hockey anymore, and Lou got rid of him with years left on his contract and didn't give a first, didn't give a top prospect. So Josh Bailey is a significant better player. So, and
Right.
again, teams need to reach the cap floor. So, no, Bailey won't cost a sweetener to get rid of. Again, he's not going to, he may only get a third, fourth round pick in return. But for the Islanders, it's the cap space is the issue. So that's no worry.
All right, Anthony, I got to ask you this one last question because assuming, let's say, the Islanders lose and Pittsburgh and Washington win their next two games, then they're out. But why is it important for a team to be trying to make the playoffs in this situation and not tank? Anthony?
Because I think it sets a bad just mentality in the room for young guys. You don't want to get in the bad habit, develop bad habits from losing and going through the motions. It's just not a good look. Especially there are veterans in the room who are proud. Even though they're not playoff bound, they still play hard just for themselves and for their teammates next to them. I think the whole notion of tanking is toxic, frankly. So, and especially not from a Lou led team. I mean, he would never allow such things. But in general, it's not good. It's not good to
Yeah,
do.
because fans, it's easier for a fan to say, why don't they just tank and try to go for Shane Wright? But you know what? This team was trying to go Stanley Cup expectations this year. They need to they need to still put the effort in that room and show that they're just as good because you're going to want to attract people with that salary cap and free agents space that they have right now.
And
More on that in about a minute. So hey guys, what do you think about the Islanders? Hold on to playoff hopes. Ilya Sorokin is the elite goaltender already. Throw it all down in the comments below, and don't forget to like and share and subscribe. And Anthony, it's time to do a very, very solid bar talk that we got going on.
I'm going to take a shot on this one.
I'm going to say beer. I'm buying everybody around on this. Oh my God.
And we'd love it if the Holy Trinity was together, but we're trying to get the whole scheduling together for everything. So, everybody, welcome back to Big Apple Hockey Bar Talk, where we gauge our confidence on NHL topics based on our choice of drink. Are you so confident you're buying everybody around? Are you so depressed you just need a shot or just, so for a beer? So, we're going to start with this. The New York Rangers are better off not winning the Metro Division. Anthony?
Beer. And I say that because, again, I think they could beat Washington or Pittsburgh. If they finish first, they're going to play Washington as they're the second wild card. And then if they finish second in the division, they play Pittsburgh, who I think they could beat as well. So, it would be different. For instance, if they won the division and because of that they played, Toronto or something like that, then I would say, yeah, maybe not. But in this case, I think either or they're going to be locked into a matchup with Pittsburgh or Washington. So, and again, I think they could beat both those teams. So I'll say beer.
I'm going to go shot. And the reason why is kind of simple. It's right over your face. Sorry about that, but it was designed for the three of us. But I'm going to go with shot. The reason why is because you never want to run from success. If you're going to do that, you're going to be just, It's not like, say, for instance, the Islanders last year that they didn't matter whether or not they were first or fourth. It just didn't matter. This time you can actually change things around. And I don't want to hear about it. Let's say, for instance, the Rangers finish in second place. And then it comes down to a best of 7 series. Let's say it's a conference finals against Florida Panthers. And then Ranger fans go, oh, well, or let's say it's against the conference finals against the Toronto Maple Leafs, who they're tied in points with. By the way, it takes an extra amount of imagination that the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to win around. But it's just then it comes down to, oh, well, game 7 could have been on our ice. Yes. Well, you wanted the tank and not finish first place. So could they be better off? Yes. But the players aren't going to do that. The players want to win the division.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so do the coaches. So does everybody. Fans are the ones we start doing all this. And by the way, there's going to be an article later on this week from me about the possible playoff opponents and playoff matchups. But no, you don't want to run away from success. Going right back into your wheelhouse, Anthony. And oh, wait, by the way, the race to win the Metro was right there. Sometimes I get too involved in talking. I forgot to put up my chyrons. The New York Islanders are going to go big game hunting in the offseason.
Mark, you hear that beeping sound?
Yeah.
It's the sound of a Brinks truck backing up to someone's front door. It's around. I think Lou is going to go hard after Johnny Gaudreau or Philip Forsberg if they reach free agency. They have $11.2 million of cap space heading into the offseason with only Noah Dobson to sign. And I think there's even more cap space at hand for them once they move Varlamov and or Bailey that can give them even more. So they need a scorer. So there's no doubt in my mind that Lou is going to target Gaudreau or Forsberg. Different players, Forsberg's probably the better pure goal scorer, even though Gaudreau only has like 4 less goals. But Gaudreau is the better all-around player. He eclipsed 100 points last night. So either way, you can't go wrong. But I think Lou is going to throw a lot of money at the two of them if they reach free agency. So absolutely, I think he's going to go big game hunting.
I look at the list that I compiled right there. I threw Patrice Bergeron on there just for the sake of throwing him on there. I doubt Boston's going to jettison him or let him go, and I doubt he's going to want to leave. But, you never know. Something's happened, and that's where he's just there. Phil Forsberg, I think, is going to re-sign with Nashville, but you know what? You never know. Something else can happen. Johnny Gaudreau is the guy that I'm targeting because we know he wants to come back in this area, but it's. Let me ask you right now, Philadelphia or the Islanders, which one are you going to?
I mean, the Islanders are a much closer team to winning a brand new building and all that stuff. So, I would say the Islanders, but you never know. Forsberg's from South Jersey. Gaudreau's from South Jersey. He grew up a Flyers fan. So who really knows? But Forsberg fits the bill just because he's more of a pure scorer, like I said. But you wouldn't say no to Gaudreau either. I mean that's
and you know what? I looked at the other names on that list, Anthony. There's a lot of guys I wouldn't say no to. Yeah. Nazem Kadri right now with the season that he's having, Nazem Kadri would be a great New York Islander.
The problem is Kadri's a center. I mean, the Islanders don't really need a center right now.
But then you could start talking about moving a guy to a wing if you want
to. You could.
John Klingberg is another one. Brian Rust would be a great addition. Like those are some real good names out there. I'm gonna go with beer only because I think he's going big game hunting anyway. And you could probably taste that beer right now if you wanted to. But the only reason why I'm going against that is just Lou's philosophy seems to be spreading the wealth, not focusing on one player. He might try to go trade for whatever Tarasenko.
That's another option.
And get him for cheaper. And then what it would pay. How much are you paying Johnny Gaudreau right now?
I think he's gonna ask for at least $10 million a year, probably. Forsberg probably 8 to 9. I don't think he'll get 10, but I mean either or. You're talking, big money for either. For definitely. Tarasenko though, I don't think he's gonna come cheap. The last summer was the time to get him cheap because there was unknowns about his shoulder. But now that he's proved that his shoulder is totally healed, he's going to command a decent amount in return if you try to trade for him right now. So, all right. And then the other wrinkle to this is I think one of the reasons the Coyotes didn't trade Chychrun is because they only had a few amount of teams, buyers at the deadline who were interested. Now by waiting, they opened them up to the whole league where you're going to have pretty much everybody interested in him, more suitors. And I think the Islanders, Lou referenced hockey trades in his post-deadline press conference. That's the way to get better. Something tells me that he's going to use Beauvillier plus other combinations and try to get Jacob Chychrun. That's the definition of a hockey trade. Good young player for a good young player. Salaries are very similar. Islanders need help on the left side defense. I would watch out for that too.
The Oscars was 2 weeks ago, and it's been award season. We were trying to get on last week to say what players you would want to slap in the face. But anyway, NHL award season is 2 months away. But the quick question is Austin Matthews the winner of the Hart Trophy right now in your mind?
I mean, so much is being made of him and his, the way he's scoring goals. So it's really hard to argue it. But I'm still a big proponent of Jonathan Huberdeau for the Hart. I mean, he's got what 104 points now on the year. And I know he plays with Barkov, and that's the argument people make against McDavid, Draisaitl. But Huberdeau has been on another level this year, and I think I just think he, for my money, is the Hart winner. But I totally see why Matthews very well might win it. So I'll go beer, but I don't know. I just like Jonathan Huberdeau a lot in the year he's had.
I'm buying around. I think he's been the most important player to the Maple Leafs, and he's what's keeping them in. And he just keeps on. The guy's going to score 60 goals. He's got another month left. He might get to 65, maybe even 70. I mean, I don't even. Depends. Does he have any more games against Detroit? More on them in a minute. But it's just there's just so. He's been doing so much for this team, and I know the hockey writers always favor anything Canadian related, even though he's a U.S. player, but he's playing in the Toronto Maple Leafs, even though everybody hates the Toronto Maple Leafs. That's a different story. But unless you're a Leafs fan, I actually don't hate the Maple Leafs. I make lots of jokes about them, but I don't hate them. But no, I think he's the Hart Trophy winner. I think he's great, and that's just what's going to happen. And look at these numbers, Anthony. 58 goals, 41 assists, 99 points. And they're not cheapies. He's getting them all right in the slot. We're going to go to another guy that's producing at a very high level that I think maybe the award's already done. And I'll start it off. Roman Josi is the Norris Trophy winner. Let me just say this. I'm buying everyone. And I don't mean me and Anthony. I'm buying the entire. There's 15 of you watching right now. By the way, thank you very much. But also, I'll go to Nashville. I'll buy the entire city, and then while I'm at it, I'm going to go to Colorado and buy that city too, because they should know Roman Josi, who's going to score 100 points this season without anyone else on his team scoring 100 points. I turn it over to you.
I mean, it's definitely around. I thought he'd reach 100 points, but he's got 87 points. Quick look. I don't know how many games Nashville has left.
I got it right on the screen.
They played 73 games, so they got 9 games left. I don't know if he's going to reach 100, but he's definitely going to be over 90. First defenseman to do that in a long time. And the thing about it is he's not just the guy that puts up points. He's real solid defensively. I mean, I know it's not going to happen, but screw Norris Trophy. I mean, you got to at least for shits and giggles, I would even throw him in for the Hart Trophy talk. I mean, if you take Roman Josi out of Nashville, I mean, how would they be right now? Because I could tell you right now, without Roman Josi, Nashville isn't where they are right now for sure. But yeah, he's fantastic. He's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
a defenseman scoring over 90 points in this day and age, man.
And he's matched up against the other team's best players. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And again, this was back during, and if I recall correctly, in the mid-season award show, you're the one that kind of went off book and said it was Roman Josi. Yeah. I had you down for somebody else and then corrected it because
he's fantastic. He's great.
Yeah. And he's been amazing. And
season.
Yeah, and also think about this: who's the superstar in Nashville?
Philip Forsberg. Really?
That's what he's got. Yeah.
And Matt Duchene has had a resurgent season too.
Good for Duchene. Good for
39 goals.
and Ryan Johansson.
Yeah,
So,
even him. He looked like Johansson was falling off a cliff, and even he's produced at a good clip.
yeah. So I mean, good for all those guys.
Yeah.
Well, here's another question I got, Anthony. I wonder if he's got any more games against Detroit, because Detroit needs to move on from Jeff Blashill.
I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna go. I mean, there are some good coaches out there they could get, but I think I'm gonna go shot. I think Detroit is better than I thought they'd be this season. You know, obviously Moritz Seider has been fantastic, so that's helped Blashill. You know, Lucas Raymond's been great, but you know, there's still a team that doesn't really have that much depth. And they were competitive for a decent amount of time there. So you know, I think if in another year or two they're still struggling, then I think you make the move. But it sounded like Detroit had playoff aspirations this year, and you know he fell short. You know, I think you need to be a little more patient with him as Seider becomes even better, which is a scary proposition because the kid's already amazing. And you know, guys like Raymond get better. Bertuzzi, you know, is still a youngish player. Larkin, they got a good foundation there, and I don't see any reason to throw Blashill out the door yet. I think there's still time for him to groom this group. So, shot.
Okay, this is where I'm going to go off at. I've been waiting to talk about this for a while, but I'm buying everybody around again.
Really?
And the reason why I'm sort of going scorched earth on this, because I did predict the Red Wings are going to make the playoffs, and it's not only not going to happen, they're not going to come close. Anthony, when I made that prediction, they had 50 points. They had 47 points. I think they played whatever amount of games. They've gotten 19 points in the last 2 months. Since February 1st, they've had 14 times they've allowed 5 goals or more.
Yeah.
And by the way, one of those extra times was a shootout, so that sort of counts. But I mean, it's just they got blown out 11-2 against the Penguins. That was March 27th, because I watched it in an airport. Yeah. That's why I remembered that. And the other thing was like the 10-7 game against the Maple Leafs. Defense is non-existent, and Moritz Seider's playing great. So, I mean, if teams can't defend, I put that on the coach. And you know who's out there when people want to talk about coaches that are out there? Their old coach. You can go get them. So it's, and I don't mean Scotty Bowman.
This is good discussion. I mean, I get what you're saying, but again, how do you put that in? I mean, Yzerman's the GM of the team, and I think he's done a great job, but he can't help that there's still a very raw team. I mean, aside from Seider, who do they have in defense? Mark Stahl. They traded Nick Leddy. You know, they don't have much team defense. So I don't put that on Blashill. And again, they're a young team, you know, and the goaltending. Look, again, goaltending's not his fault. Yzerman, he got Nedeljkovic, looked like he was going to be.
And I still think Nedeljkovic is going to be fine eventually for them.
In Carolina, he was good. This year, he hasn't been so good. Grice has been So I don't know if you could put that on Blashill. I really don't. I mean, yeah, if they suck in another, you know, Yzerman makes the team a little better this offseason, you know, and they're still bad. Again, maybe in a year or so you revisit the conversation. But right now, I don't think you can hold Blashill that accountable. That's just my opinion.
I mean, again, Mike Babcock would not. This team would be a lot better with Mike Babcock, and I'm not saying that that's the best place for him to go. It's just, you know what? Might be after his time in Toronto. Go back there. The Tampa Bay Lightning will be a wild card team, Anthony.
I mean, Boston is 1 point behind them. I still think Tampa Bay, you know, listen, they won the Cup 2 years in a row. They know how grueling the playoffs is. They knew they were going to be a playoff team. I also think they take their foot off the gas here in the regular season a little bit and then turn it up. So I think that's been a case of what's going on here. But I think they hold off Boston. They finish third. But it's up for debate. You know, I'll go beer, but I think come playoff time, this team's going to turn it up. And as much as it pains me to say it, because they took my Islanders out twice, I think they have a good chance of, possibly repeating. Sorry, well, three-peating.
Yeah. I threw Toronto in there when we were when you're going over the standings. They're right there, 100 points. By the way, it's impressive that I have all these Chirons and Anthony's doing everything by memory. So okay, but they're 5-3-2 of their last 10. Boston's only 6-4. Toronto's the one that separated themselves. They're 7-2-1 in their last 10. 7-2-1 in their last 10. And it's just if they were a wild card team, I think they'd be the dangerous wild card team. That's why I would agree with some fans that might want to say the Rangers are better off not winning the division. But Tampa Bay, I don't know. I don't think they have it right now. And or they haven't put it together. But as a matter of fact, Chris G is saying the same thing. Just doesn't have it anymore. But we'll see about that. They were hoping that they could resurrect that Goudreau, the Goudreau, Gord, and Coleman line. And it's what the hard part is. I remember back 1 year, but they're all in different places now. So it's one of those things. I don't think that they're there. Brandon Hagel, really, they had to give up that much to go get him. I don't know. I just don't know if Tampa's got it and if their reinforcements aren't coming. Mike NYR was saying before the Oilers haven't been oiling lately. And that's the question I have for you, Anthony. The Oilers have figured it out.
I mean, they're 9 points behind Calgary for first, so they're not winning the division, but they're probably going to be in that 2 or 3 spot. But I mean, they figured it out for now. Come playoff time, though, I looking at the composition of their team, I think they can unravel pretty quickly. So yeah, for now, lately they've been pretty good. But I don't know. I mean, if they play LA in that first round matchup, I could see them beating LA. But LA is a heavier team, so I think that doesn't really match up for Edmonton very well. I think that's one of the reasons I got Evander Kane, because he could play that heavy game despite playing a skilled game. But overall, I like how they've been playing, but I don't like their goaltending. Smith and Koskinen, I don't see that holding up in a 7-game series. So I'm still not really that high on the Oilers. But yeah, so I guess I'll go shot.
Wow. That entire time I didn't think you were doing that. Hey Anthony, I'm gonna go shot too. No way. They have not figured it out.
Yeah.
I put this graphic up, and I want to be clear about this. 7-2-1 in their last 6 games. The other games that they've had, they've either let in let's see, I think they let in 9 to Calgary.
Yeah.
So no, you haven't figured it out. And you got a goaltender that's almost as old as me. And I mean, Mikko Koskinen, no, I've said my piece on him before. I mean, it's sort of like the way that I kind of feel that what Oilers have been playing lately is there was an old Robot Chicken sketch about the most one-sided fights of all time. And there's a guy that steals candy from a baby, and you just see him punching the carriage.
Yeah.
That's the way the Oilers have been. The teams that they've been beaten lately aren't exactly world beaters. Yeah. You got the Kings that are limping towards the playoffs. And right now they're only 3 points up on the Vegas Golden Knights, and they're only 6 points up on the Vancouver Canucks. They might not finish in a playoff spot. So that's one.
I see LA holding on. I do.
They just lost Drew Doughty for the season.
They did. Yep.
That's going to be a big one, and they're starting to hemorrhage goals. So, and a lot of people a lot of even the LA writers are kind of worried about them. So that's going to be it. But I got to go shot because but I do not believe that they figured it out just yet. They're scoring goals again. Good for them.
Yeah,
because
no.
that every offense translates perfectly to the
Yeah.
playoffs.
They had an ugly game last night against Minnesota, though. They got waxed 5-1.
Yeah,
So,
and so they went up against a good team. That's one because there's 7-3 they lost before the trade deadline, and then Minnesota waxes them again.
yep.
So there you go. All right, guys, that's going to be the end of our bar talk. So, what do you guys think? Are the New York Rangers better off not winning the Metropolitan Division? The Islanders are going to go big game hunting. Austin Matthews is the Hart Trophy winner. Roman Josi is the Norris Trophy winner. I have to remember all these things at once. Can you do a better job coaching than coaching Detroit than Jeff Blashill can? Throw it all down in the comments below. Anthony, I'm actually going to trigger, I'm going to go with an editorial because I'm going to go from an article that was written on our news site, which was bigapplehockeypodcast.com. And I'm going to, but even though it's an on the mark, you're going to be staying on with me for this. So we haven't done this in a while, guys. So I'm happy to do this. This prediction that's right up here.
Being single most of my life.
Or just yell at Larry Brooks like every other New York Ranger. Because one topic of conversation, and I'm still flabbergasted by it, but some news can actually wait, people. Because last week, everyone on Twitter was rushing to say that Mike Bossy passed away. It is, and I give some credit to say a couple of the bigger outlets. I know Spitting Chicklets put up an apology on it. I know a couple other guys that apologize for it, but you guys could wait. Come on, the man is gathered by his family and his friends. Fans all want to mourn. They don't need this. What are you doing? And what is this for? Likes? It's for shares. Just hold. That's all we need. It's when the news. I understand news is based on the word new. And that's where information comes from. And if you wait too long, it's called olds. So it's just, we don't need instant knowledge on that. We can wait on that. It's bad enough the news that already came out about them, about a great man who has accomplished so much. And you know what? Inaccurate information, that's the norm these days in news. In any platform that you go on, because everybody just wants to put out what they've heard. It's rumor. Mm-hmm. No. And you get some places that they delete the tweets. No, you don't delete it. You sit there, you go, no, I'm going to retweet this and then say, yeah, my bad. I messed up. But if you have to delete it, then you shouldn't have been putting it up anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, there's if you look at the Big Apple Hockey Twitter feed, there's a lot of other comments that have been made just by me where I've said, oops, I screwed up. Maybe I should have doing my job. Like last night, I didn't know why Tony D'Angelo was getting booed. And then I found out the quote, but that he said, I don't care what Ranger fans thought about me. Oops, I should have done my job, But it's it's grotesque, Anthony, and that's just the way that I feel about it. And if any of us are ever pulling that kind of garbage on Big Apple Hockey and eventually Big Apple Sports, please call us out on it.
Yeah, you know what? In this day and age, a lot of these, insiders, like for instance, I get it with like trying to like be the first one to break a trade or whatnot. But when you're talking about a man's life, I mean, have some respect. You mean you want to be the first one to get credit for breaking news that a guy died? I mean, it's just terrible. And Spittin' Chicklets, I know they issued an apology, but that's not something you can get wrong. Like if you're going to report that someone, someone's father, someone's son, etc., passed away, like, at least have it be accurate. And clearly it wasn't accurate. It seemed as though, and you would think guys like Biz and Ryan Whitney, I don't know if it was them directly, but you would think obviously they're a little bit connected.
I don't think it was them directly. I think it was the name of somebody else.
In general, you should at least do some due diligence before you report something like that. I know beforehand there was, for the last couple of days, there were reports that he entered palliative care and, his fight with cancer took a bad turn. But I mean, be sure, like, don't like, and even if he did, let Bossy's family inform the Islanders and the NHL, and then let them be the ones that break the news to the general public. I mean, it's just disgusting, irresponsible reporting by them, to be honest with you.
And Mike, that's part of the problem now. And I went to school for journalism and journalism ethics. I mean, I didn't graduate, so if you want to hold that against me, go ahead. But it's just, first, social media has just made, and Mike is also Chris has also just said this too, that the news is a little bit too fast. Social media has just made it worse because now everybody's trying to one up each other. They're already trying to one up each other. Hell, there was a movie in the 90s called I Love Trouble, which was one of the worst productions of all time. That's a different story. And it was about reporters always trying to one up each other on everything. Look, they all want to be Woodward and Bernstein and break Watergate. But the thing is, no, thanks, Mike, by the way. But it's just, this is not, first off, there are times to do that. If you want to say you got the trade right, fine. Then you can retract that. You can't really retract that. I mean, and Mike says it right here. Betty White died 5 times on social media. Like, just, yeah. And it was all a good laugh until we actually found out that she died. And of course, 2 weeks before her 100th birthday. So it's get it right. Have some journalistic integrity. I know that I'm saying it falling on deaf ears. And I know that I make my little side comments that you're just like, wow, that's really being professional. But still, it's stuff like this you can't get away from. And yeah. And by the way, there we go. There's Dealey on this. So, well, David, you're also, by the way, right on this one. Sinbad is dead, but I think I'm thinking about the ancient tale from 300 years ago or something. It's just, but again, Mike Bossy's done great things throughout his life, even if it's an ordinary person. Just you can't be doing that. So just don't. Just take a minute before you hit send. That's all I'm asking the press to do. Never mind the sports. So keep on commenting, guys. We got one more topic of conversation we're going to get to, and I do have to answer this. Chris, that was the theme from Spy Hunter, which was I think it was a spy show. It was Peter something. I got to remember what it was. It's the original theme of that. But Anthony, this week a lot of Michigan players are coming into the NHL, and there's a lot of excitement. Whether it's Owen Power last night or I think last night was Matty Beniers.
Yeah.
And Bobby Brink playing for the Flyers, I think tonight. And who is some of the players and the prospects you were excited to see coming up?
Through the college ranks, it was Anders Lee in, I think, 2012, 2013 when he turned pro after he finished at Notre Dame. He actually scored a goal in his first game against Winnipeg. I was there.
He was playing center, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, I believe so. It was like a bad goal, but he kind of threw the puck at the net from just inside. I think it was like the top of the circle, and it went in. But I remember that debut. I was looking forward to. Obviously, of course, when they drafted Tavares first overall, his first game. But yeah, those are the two that really stick out. And then, I mean, most recently, Sorokin, when he first joined the team, he was ineligible to play during the bubble. He was able to practice but not play. So his NHL debut, with how highly touted he was, that was but that ended up being anticlimactic because his first game was that game against the Rangers, the first game of the year where Varlamov got his bell rung in warmups, and Sorokin was just like told 10 minutes beforehand, you're in, and had kind of like deer in headlight look. But that one too was memorable for me.
Sometimes your debuts don't go as well as what you think. So not everybody is. I don't think it was Jordan Binnington's first game where he had a shutout, but there's a bunch of guys that got shutouts in their first game. So it's more often than not, the guys put tape on your blade and you end up falling flat on your face. But for me, I'd probably have to go recently as Lafreniere and Kakko. I was excited for Keandre Miller as well. I was excited also to steal Nils Lundqvist, but I knew his role was going to be reduced, so that's a little bit different. Number one, first and foremost, was Chris Kreider. Me and my friend Timmy Kirkostas were talking about Chris Kreider coming up, and that he was going to be on the Rangers pretty soon. And he told me he referenced another guy. He said, "There's two guys I think that are for real in our entire time being Ranger fans and everything." He said it was Mark Savard, who the Rangers never should have traded. I still say this right now. And by the way, even though he found out what he was in Boston, so it took some time. And the other one is Chris Kreider. And again, Chris Kreider took plenty of time to get to 50 goals. This is the guy we all thought we were going to see. And a lot of Ranger fans were frustrated because he wanted to play a speed game. They wanted him to use his size a little bit more. But then he came in the playoffs, and wow, he gets the big goal versus the Ottawa Senators, the game-winning goal in Game 1 versus the Washington Capitals. Ended up having 6 goals in the playoffs that year, and at least now he's got some time. I actually have a compilation of the Chris Kreider 50 goals, and the reason behind his success this year that'll be coming out hopefully within this week, if not next week. So it's, and again, I like to say that too, because I wish Phil was here just so I could revel in Chris Kreider scoring.
Kreider he's an interesting case because before the season, he was a very vanilla guy. He'd get you 20 25 goals, disappear, be a ghost. This year is completely different, which again, I'm pretty unbiased. I call it like it is. As a Ranger fan, I think you got to temper your expectations going into next season. Like, honestly, the guy's not scoring 50 goals again next season. Just
if he doesn't and he scores 40, fine.
At 30 years old, you just don't start becoming a 45, 50 goal scorer. I mean, they're called career years for a reason. And so for me, I think you have to at least lower your expectations and say, okay, hopefully he scores 30. Obviously, if he scored 40, that's great. And if he scored 50 again, well, then that's fantastic. But I would not bank on him scoring 40 or 50 goals next season. That's just a tall order. I mean, you got to look at his prior body of work, and at this point, you got to view this as a career year, and then you see what happens next year.
Well, by the way, some of these names that are coming through the comments, by the way, thank you guys all for commenting. Don't forget also to like, because that helps the YouTube algorithm, as long as I could say algorithm. But I mean, Booney Evans was one of those that you're just like, oh my goodness, I can't wait for Booney Evans. No, and David, I knew it was Sinbad the comedian. I knew we were trying to talk about. Yeah, Joe Rogan's died about 500 times. But Kreider and Adam Fox. I mean, Jack Drury also that was in there. I mean, it's some guys. What's kind of confusing about it with Kreider is this isn't a contract year. This is like the middle of his contract. Usually guys have these career years in a contract year. Either they just signed the contract or not. I think the biggest difference is Gerard Gallant, and he's got him doing some things a little bit more differently, and they're finding him better on the power play. He's one of the best net front present players. I said that at the beginning of the year, and this time I think he's just getting the puck more. Derek Stepan couldn't get him the puck as much as Mika Zibanejad could, and it's
listen, just sometimes there's no science to it. Just sometimes guys have career years, and they have a really good year.
Like Jason Blake scoring 40 goals out of nowhere.
Yeah, Jason Blake scored 40 goals. He never sniffed that again. So again, I mean, you gotta temper. You can't just peg Chris Kreider as a 40 goal scorer because he did it 50 goal scorer because he did it this year. You have to see what he does next year, and then go from there.
But if he's anything like what he is right now, oh boy.
Yeah, I mean that's a huge win, but again, it's 1 year, so you can't just say easily pencil him in for 40 or 50 because that's tough. He's never done it before this year, so.
But I think he broke the mold on 30. I mean, I think if I recall correctly, and one of the things I have to go through my statistics on is I think every player that scored 50 goals for the New York Rangers never scored 40 ever again for them.
Yeah,
So
and honestly, it's not it's not a stretch to say, he'll only score 32 or 35 next year. It's not. You have to wait and see. But
yeah.
he's great this year, so you just have to let it ride.
All right. So let's actually go a little bit more league wide. Who are some of the prospects that you looked at and went, I can't wait to see what this guy is going to be?
Well, I think I could speak for all Wild fans and saying Kaprizov finally coming over was like Christmas Day. They were waiting for him for so long, and I mean, boy, did he deliver! I mean, Kirill the Thrill. I mean, he's outstanding. I mean, he's again, you want to talk about MVP in the truest sense of the word. If you take Kirill Kaprizov off Minnesota, I mean, uh, are they a playoff team? I don't know. I don't.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, he's in my top five. If I was voting for the Hart Trophy, he's in the top five for sure. Other guys, yeah, Caulfield. I mean, I think he was. Canadian fans were really waiting for him. Trying to think some of the guys over the years. Um, let's see.
I'll
I mean,
throw Sidney
there's a lot of
Crosby
guys
and
that come
Austin
from
Matthews.
college that teams eagerly wait for. Um,
But Sidney
what?
Crosby and Austin Matthews were two of those guys I was like, I can't wait to see. And then
Yeah,
Matthews
yeah,
has 4 goals in his first game. I think he
yeah,
had 4 goals, 3 goals in his first 4 shots.
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
that's
that was
ridiculous.
that was a ridiculous debut.
And of course, oh wait. Yeah, by the way, I agree with that. Although, by the way, he did technically never play a game for any other team. So, Chris, that's Hugh Jessamine. Hugh, hey, Anthony, can I ask you a question? Do you remember
Yeah,
who you guys got in that draft in the Islanders?
yeah. Robert Nilsson.
And Robert Nilsson became something else, right?
No.
No, he was one of the guys they traded for Ryan Smith.
Oh yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
that's why when I talk about this, that the Rangers, Hugh Jessamine tied in goals scored with me and you, and the Anthony's got a better shot than me, I hear. And it's just, I mean, at least the Islanders got something out of it. Just
Yeah.
Hugh Jessamine, you could have picked anyone. So anyone. Dominic, you're right about this. Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews. Bedard's going to be the next one that we're going to be looking at. But you also had, I mean, another thing about the Connor McDavid scenario is there was not really a debate who was going number one, but Jack Eichel as number two. You get a lot
Good
of people that
consolation
wanted Jack
prize.
Eichel to be the better player, and eventually, Moritz Seider, by the way, I was looking forward to him all year this year.
Yeah.
The great part about doing this channel is, and especially fantasy sports as well, is we've started to expand our horizons a little bit. But who's one player that you were waited for a while and was disappointed with?
I mean, there's been a few. I mean, obviously, Josh Bailey was one. At the time he was, when he was drafted, I think they were based on how he performed with Hall in the OHL. He kind of, but then again, he came up at a time where the Islanders didn't really have much talent at all. So I think to this day that's hurt his development. So Bailey was one. Eric Fichaud. I thought there were higher expectations for Eric Fichaud when he finally came aboard.
Yeah.
He was definitely one of them. So there have been a bunch throughout the years, but those two stick out in my head, at least from an Islander perspective.
You mentioned Eric Fichaud. I remember a goal in '97 that he allowed that Mark Messier hit him in the crest, and it still went in. And that's just one of those moments where you're just going, you're not going to make it in this league, kid.
Yeah.
It's and he looked like he was going to be the part. He looked like it. I mean, Michael Delzato is a guy that comes to mind that I thought he was. Not that he disappointed right away. He was more of like the long thing. He was pretty good for the Rangers for about 2 years.
What about Pavel Brendel?
We never got to see Pavel Brendel as a New York Ranger. So there you go. Jamie Lundmark. There you go. That's actually one that I can think of that I saw him and wondered, is this kid going to be anything more? I think the Rangers wasted Manny Malhotra, but I think that as far as that goes. Bill Chadwick always said he couldn't put the puck in the ocean.
Yes.
Oh, it's just, there's a lot of those guys that you just, that's the reason why you got to prove it. You got to get up to the league, and all the best of luck to Owen Power and Manny Beniers. And I mentioned Bobby Brink, who the Rangers are going to see tonight.
Yeah,
but I mean, are they going to be Anders Lee, where you're going to see him as a center, and then they're going to move in the wing, and he's going to flourish? Yeah. Or is it going to be Chris Kreider, who's going to take 8 years to reach 50 goals? It's 8 years. I think it's 9. It's 9 seasons. Yeah, and because he was the 2012 playoffs, so that's about it. Shoot the puck, Barry. And Nicholas, you're right about this one. It was Lisa Ann who who put him on blast. And that's just where you makes you roll your eyes and just go, oh, like, where are your priorities? That's why you gotta succeed first before you think you're anything great. So we do want to hear what you guys think. What are some of the players that you were excited to see, and did they live up to your expectations? Write it all down in the comments below. Anthony, I have one more question to ask you before we start any Q&A right now. But do you have any bet recommendations for tonight?
It's only 3 games on. A lot of times I like to do point parlays. Last couple of nights, I've been fortunate enough to hit on 6-leg parlays of guys getting points. I've also missed quite a few, but I've been, thankfully I've won a decent amount. So I'd have to take a look, but off the top of my head, I sometimes bet on like first period winners, and just looking at the schedule tonight, I think taking the Rangers over Philly to win the first period is a good one. To take Colorado winning the first period against LA in a parlay, I like that. But usually when there's a huge slate of games, I do those 6-leg parlays for points.
All right. Well, because we're gonna get more of his bet recommendations, because you don't want mine. I've got the reverse of the Midas touch as far as that goes. I always get irony whenever it comes to my bets losing. Like, though I could have hit a 5-team parlay, but Brad Marchand missed an open net with 1 second remaining, stuff like that, or they hit the post.
Yeah.
So, all right, Anthony, we're gonna go. Any other rumors or news around the week?
No. Right now it's all about playoff time. But I think once the season ends for teams that miss the playoffs, you'll start to maybe hear some news about their plans with maybe some players who might be on the block or might not be coming back. So right now there's no rumors. The only thing I could say is regarding Gaudreau and Forsberg, they're not signed yet. You would think that if they were going to return, they would be signed by now. So I've been of the belief as going through it with Tavares, and sure, there are exceptions to the rule. If you have a big time free agent like that, and he hasn't re-upped with your team by the deadline, I think most of the time it doesn't spell good news for those teams. So, me personally, I know you mentioned before you think Forsberg returns. I've heard that he does like Nashville, but there's a certain point where it reaches, you got to start to wonder, okay, well, if the guy really liked it that much, he would have made it work. So, again, a little too early to tell, but I personally think those guys might hit the market.
There's I have the confidence that Forsberg likes Nashville. Now, I'm not too worried about Johnny Gaudreau, only because I mean him going to free agency. He is going to free agency. I think that's their plan all along. It's just they're going to say, we're good enough, let's go for it.
Yeah,
and they are good enough. I think they're good enough to win the cup.
They definitely are. I get the vibe though that I don't think Calgary is willing to pay him market value what he can get in the open market, and I think that's why Gaudreau is going to at least want to test free agency. I really do. I mean,
Yeah.
something tells me that I don't know if Calgary is going to go to 10+ million for him.
I got to address this comment right. Actually, you know, I'm going to come back to this one for you in a minute, Chris. But there's David's actually got a good point right here. Who's going to be more PO'd? The Flyers losing by 8 or the Rangers losing to the Canes? Well, the Rangers, both teams are on back-to-backs, so there's no advantage to one over the other. The Rangers do have to travel to Philly, but whatever. The Rangers better come back on it right now if they want to still have the hopes for the division right now. Chris said, I'm sad that the Who cast didn't show the tributes to Fast, Shea, Tony D'Angelo, and Brendan Smith. Anthony, I'm gonna sound insensitive when I say this. Do we have to have tributes to every player that ever leaves a team?
We've talked about this before. A tribute to Brendan Smith, it would be a joke.
Tony D'Angelo,
even Fast, Shea. It's no those you don't.
I mean, Jesper Fast was at least with the team since 2013, so I'm acceptable with that. But everybody's got to get a tribute now.
Yeah, no.
Jesper Fast, I'm okay with, and he had his own tribute, by the way. Brady Shea, I can't help but look at Brady Shea and wonder every time I ever look at Brady Shea, I think about the parallel universe where Alain Vigneault doesn't bench him for basically the last 8 minutes versus Ottawa when he had a 2-goal game, and he played him. Does his career flourish after that? Because I thought he was burgeoning on a great talent, and then suddenly after that he just went to a giveaway machine. Yeah. So I don't know, but but by the way, Chris, this is where you're right about this, and this is the reason why I'm actually on the Jesper Fast train on this. But he was 5 times the player's player. Tony D'Angelo was punched out by his goaltender.
That's true.
I mean, as far as the rest of this stuff goes, you can leave it to the newspaper writers. Yeah. But I wish you were there with us that day because it would have worked out great. But we were trying to do an honest press conference where Phil was Jack Eichel, and I wanted you to pop in as John Tavares, and I popped in as Marc Messier. But I ended up not putting in as a shorter segment because it didn't come out as well as I wanted to. But John Tavares had people peeing on his jersey. Like, how much worse could it possibly get? And in the meantime, Marc Messier got the video tribute when nobody got video tributes.
Yeah,
like that just don't water this stuff down. I mean, but then again, we could still appreciate a player without a video tribute.
This is I think that this would be a big mistake. One, he's got a great shot. He's still young, and he plays for a coach that's very strict on young players. I think he's going to be a really good player in this league. And also the counterpart too is he's on an ELC, and you need players on ELCs to drive down your cap. So if they were to trade Wahlstrom, I got to tell you, they'd better be getting a really good player in return because his ceiling's pretty high. And while on topic, Chris is right here. I think Beauvillier is the piece they have to go in that hockey trade that Lou has talked about. He's young. He's a good cap hit, 4.1 million. He still has a little bit of a higher ceiling to hit. So I think he's the candidate to really use to get that, that top 4 defenseman. Because John Klingberg's out there, as Mark referenced, but he's 29 years old. Not old, but I would rather a younger top 4D than Klingberg. I'm not going to complain if that's what they did, but I think Beauvillier is the piece to get that, whether it be Chychrun, Sam Girard, anybody else.
Let's say they whiff on Gaudreau and Forsberg. Do the Rangers? Do the Islanders then go again, John Klingberg?
Well, I was going to say if they miss on those two forwards, you go to Tarasenko because they need another goal scorer.
But they can get Tarasenko, who's already under contract.
They trade for him.
Yeah, no, what I'm saying is they could trade for him. Do you still go get a Klingberg?
Yeah, they need a top 4D on the left side to replace Leddy. They didn't do that this past offseason. And they need another top 6 forward. It's funny. They need another top 6 forward, but the narrative would have been completely different. Like when they lost that 1-0 game to Tampa Bay in game 7, if they would have won that game 1-0, you wouldn't hear anybody saying, "Oh, they lost because they needed another goal scorer." You wouldn't have heard it. It's just funny how that played out. So yes, they need another goal scorer, but you can't lose sight of the fact that they lost a 1-0 game in a game 7. Could have easily gone the other way, and no one would be even talking about that. But it is what it is. But the fact remains, yes, they do need another goal scorer for sure.
I'm just going to change that to we'll take your questions. But I do want to also throw another name at you because Chris Frost just threw this one out. But first, I want to also ask this. Anthony, who was the one that cautioned Islander fans and the Islander organization about getting rid of Nick Leddy last year?
You?
Oh, that was you.
Yeah.
He said, I'm not sure that's really the best move.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you know what it is? I get why Lou did it. He needed some cap space. Leddy had value as evident. They got a good haul for Leddy with the picks that they eventually turned into Ratu. So that and now he's their best prospect. So I get it. He had good value, but the plan should have been to replace him with another top 4 defenseman who could skate, not Zdeno Chara, who can't move very well. But it's hard. I'll get to this in a second.
Yes.
But
what could you? How about this? Can you address this one?
Yes, I will. A lot of Islander fans get on Lou for not making wholesale changes after losing that 1-0 game to Tampa Bay, like not pulling the trigger on Tarasenko. But they just came off 2 back-to-back conference final losses. So they got pretty far. So I get why in Lou's head, okay, this team, pretty much, almost made it to the top of the mountain 2 years in a row. Why should I tinker with the whole chemistry and upset everything? So I get why he came back with the same team. With that said, now that they failed this year, they absolutely need to add, like we were talking about, sign Gaudreau, Forsberg, trade for Tarasenko. They need to do absolutely something. Mark, this is my good friend Manny. It's funny to see him finally join the show. Maybe a bag of pucks ends like a new net, like a shiny new red net. I think my value would at least be that.
Anthony, you're definitely worth at least water bottles as well.
Yeah.
But
as for the question about trading the first round pick, I disagree with that because the Islanders, the one reason why this may be a blessing in disguise to have the year they've had is, aside from Ratu, Robin Salo, William Dufour, who I don't know if you know, he's tearing up the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. One of the, top leading scorers in the whole league for a while. He was first. He was a 5th round pick a couple of years ago. So hopefully that's a hidden gem. They'll sign him. But they need to improve their prospect pool. So having a first round pick wherever it falls, maybe they win the lottery, highly doubt it. But even if they got, 10th to 15th overall, 8th, wherever they land, they could really use that player. I know they want to win now, but they also need to look to the future. So I would not trade that first round pick this year. I would use it to actually pick a player.
I'm going to address one comment and then come back to a question that I have right up here that I want to get back to. But does Tarasenko still even want to be traded anymore? Yes, he does.
Yes, he does.
The difference is Tarasenko's a professional.
Yep.
He's still angry about some of the things that happen in there. He might even stay next year if they don't.
I think it was as recent as I think a month or two ago. I thought I read something from Jeremy Rutherford, who covers the Blues, the beat writer from the Athletic, said that nothing changed in that department, and Tarasenko still wants to change the scenery. So I know a lot of people criticize St. Louis for holding on to him, but in retrospect, they made the right move because now he proved his shoulder's healthy. He's having a phenomenal year. Now they'll get the typical return you would have thought of when you heard Tarasenko's name in a trade. So good for them.
One thing that always makes me happy is every time I ever see this name right here, John D. Lee. And it's most likely to resign Cop or Strome. I'm going to go with Cop because
Me
Cop
too.
is younger and Cop isn't going to cost as much. Like I think he might go to 5.5 million, maybe not that much. He's a more versatile player than Ryan Strome is. He's a better player than Ryan Strome is. I'm sorry to say it like that, but it's I don't need to say that I'm not exact. I let me choose my words better right here. But if Ryan Strome is a New York Ranger next season, he's not coming in with a discount, and he's got to accept a reduced role. Like the New York Rangers can't afford to keep delaying the development of Lafreniere and Kakko. And I know what everybody's going to tell me. Well, they tried him on the second line. They tried him on the first line. Well, because those two went to the wrong situation. They really did. Let's be honest with this. If the Rangers were further down in the draft, they end up with Trevor Zegras, maybe like Jamie Drysdale, Drysdale. Who knows who they end up then? Maybe Marco Rossi. But instead, they got these two guys that didn't exactly fit their needs. But the Brennan Oppman's coming next year. That might make Kakko expendable. So it's
Mark. I'll hit you with this. Again, I tell it like it is. I think the Rangers need a stronger second line center, and Cop, great player. I view him more as like a Pajot, like a really, really good 3C.
absolutely.
Strome is, to me, he's a product of playing with a guy like Artemi Panarin on an average team. He's not a true number two center. He wouldn't be putting up the points he did if he didn't play with Panarin. So I'll pose this, and I think it's the best move for the Rangers, and I would think most of the Ranger fans would agree. I think they should move on from both and get themselves a true number two center, or even a guy who could be a number one center. You know where I'm going, Mark Scheifele. Go get a higher end 2C, not a middling guy like Cop or Strome. I think that's the best play for the Rangers. Now,
I still think keeping Cop is the best option.
Well, yeah, you keep him as a 3C, but I think if they can go Zibanejad, Scheifele, or Scheifele, Zibanejad, then Cop, that's a real strong three down the middle. And obviously the cap is a huge part of this. They have Fox's extension kicking in, Zibanejad's extension kicking in. So I know it's going to be a little tight. You have Trouba making a lot of money, but if you can make that deal work with Scheifele or a similar center of that ilk that maybe would become available, I think that's the best. I think that's the best plan for the Rangers.
And the Rangers have been trading with Winnipeg. They've traded for Jacob Trouba. They traded Kevin Hayes there. They've traded so Kevin Cheveldayoff is, and obviously Andrew Kopp. He's done plenty of business with the New York Rangers over the last few years, so that's not a problem. Julian, that's actually somewhat funny that it would Kravtsov for Tarasenko. I worry about this. Now, I know you're talking about as part of a package, not straight up, but I worry about getting too many stars. I ask that question a lot. And by the way, obviously the Mets must be playing because this thing has been going off like crazy. But I worry about getting too many stars on the team because then you get guys that lose their roles. And I say this all the time when it comes to if the Rangers did get Mark Scheifele, is he on power play one? If he's on power play one, then what are you doing? Again, what are you doing with Kakko and Lafreniere? There's got to be a plan. Somebody tell me what the plan is. But there is no plan with these guys. We're never going to get Alexis Lafreniere has played slightly more power play time than me, and we're tied in points. That is not a good thing, and he's a number one overall draft pick. So
Lafreniere. First, I'll get to Tarasenko in this hypothetical Kravtsov. Tarasenko's got 60, 69, 67 points. I think actually 67 points in 66 games. He's back to the territory now with his value where I think St. Louis might be able to get a first-round pick for him. So I think Krasov's not enough. I think you'd have to give more, and I think that could be an issue for some teams.
David, let me
Lafreniere.
correct this. I think it's not the Mets. Are they losing yet? Is that they've blown it yet? That's where it should be.
Lafreniere. I mentioned this before. A lot of my good friends that play on my men's league team, they've already had enough with Lafreniere. They think he's not as good as he was hyped to be. I know there are a lot of Ranger fans that still like him a lot, and again, he's in his second year. It's still very early, but
Very early.
very early. But for a first overall pick, having 25 points in 75 games, it's not good. It's not good.
Again, the role that he was what is his role on this team?
No, I get. Listen, I get it. I get it. But they're for the naysayers of Lafreniere, they say if he's as talented as he says, even despite maybe he doesn't get the minutes or the chances that he should get, he would still be able to overcome that and produce because he is that good. So that's the argument to it. I mean, again, it's a second year in the league, but however, just like Kakko, I think if next year, let's say through 75 games, he's got 25, 30 points again, you start to have a conversation.
Then you have to start looking.
Was maybe this guy not as good in a week, like a weaker class? You know what I'm saying? It's not crazy. It's not a crazy thing to think. I mean, hell, Adam Pelech is a defensive defenseman. No power play time either. I mean, you have Dobson on the first unit, and the second unit you have Polak, and Adam Pelech has more points than Alexis Lafreniere. I mean, that's not that's not a good look.
And they've moved them around to different lineups. They've moved around to different positions. By the way, just want to say, David, I've tied in power play points. I don't have a power play point. Neither does Alexei Lafreniere. So it's one of those things that it's if they would have gotten another right wing, it would have made more sense. If they would have gotten another center, it made more sense. And I don't want to hear about that the Rangers made the wrong choice. This is what Central Scouting said. Those were the guys to go get. All the fans knew it as soon as they finished second in the lottery and first in the lottery. Those were the guys they were getting. You don't just – they could have traded down out of that, but they didn't. They went with this guy. And by the way, this could also be another Tyler Seguin situation where you got a guy on a team – except Tyler Seguin produced, I believe, one season for the Bruins. And then they moved him, and then look what happened. Boom. So let's all just, settle down. Simmer down now.
I get where the angst is coming from, though, because you have those expectations, and they're not being met. And obviously we live in New York where it's all, instant gratification. So, again, still plenty of time. But if next year, he's still failing to, score at a good clip, then you start to wonder.
By the way, and all this stems from the Ryan Strome conversation, because let me also say this. If you re-sign Ryan Strome, you might as well trade Lafreniere and Kakko. And then get some other teams' top prospects, maybe that they fit.
Let me ask you this. If Scheifele were on the table, because again, I think if he could be moved, especially the year that Winnipeg had, and it's clear that Kyle Connor is essentially the guy they're building around, and Blake Wheeler's aging. If they ask for either Lafreniere or Kakko, do you move them? I'm assuming you guys would prefer Kakko, but would you trade a guy like Kakko for Scheifele? For my opinion, as someone that doesn't have a horse in this race, I would move Kakko for Scheifele in a deal.
Let me throw a name out at you right now, because in the late 90s, there's been other players that fans were going, "Oh, I'm tired of this guy. I'm tired of this guy," and then he gets moved to a different situation and explodes.
Mm-hmm.
For the Rangers, we're going to go with Alexei Kovalev,
Mm-hmm.
and then for the Islanders, we'll go with Todd Bertuzzi.
Yeah.
And both those instances we could say were mistakes. The Rangers even reacquired Alexei Kovalev,
Yep.
and was still But I mean, Alexei Kovalev was a very good Ranger his first time around. He was great in the playoffs. The Rangers don't win the '94 Cup without him. But that being said, he kind of was la-di-da and then would turn it up in March. But Bertuzzi, on the other hand, that's a guy you look at and win. He's sort of the one that got away, and then he broke Steve Moore's neck.
Well, do you move Kako for Scheifele? In my opinion, like I said, I do it. I don't claim to be this NHL scout or have the best eye of all time.
We're working on
best
our
eye of all time for talent. However, I think I've seen enough to Kako where I could say I don't think it's a guarantee at all that he becomes a better player than what Mark Scheifele already is right now. So for me, I would move Kako in a package for Scheifele. I would.
And you know what? I would do it. I'm just going to say I still think Kako's going to flourish somewhere else if that happens. And I think so would Philip Hedl to a lesser extent. And, it's not like I looked at Elias Anderson and knew this kid does not have what it takes. Now, one thing I will say for Alexis Lafreniere and for Capo Kakko, if you're not getting enough ice time, go ask your coach how to get more ice time. There's a lesson for all you young players out there, because you could say, just simply put, coach, I'll do the penalty kill. Now the Rangers don't need him right now, but that's just any way you can get on the ice, because after all, one of your favorites over the years, Alexander Ovechkin, the way to neutralize them was to get them on the PK, and then they don't use them. But Sidney Crosby played the PK.
It's hard. It's hard to stop Alex Ovechkin. The guy's like a robot.
Keeping him on the bench.
Yeah,
that's the way to do it. The Russian machine don't break. Peter Nedved, by the way, David, yes, to a lesser degree, also was a guy that they moved and got back. But also, by the way, I'm glad you brought up Peter Nedved for this. It's a reason why roles are so important. Peter Nedved is the top line center with the checkmates, produced very well. Rangers go out and get Eric Lindros, and they still had Mark Messier in tow. Peter Nedved ends up being the third line center at one point. That's not a way to succeed.
There was a comment further back I saw. Someone mentioned Dylan Larkin. I just wanted to
that was John.
Address that. Because in the All Things Islanders that our friend John Solomon runs, someone mentioned Larkin for the Islanders, and he'd rather have him over Forsberg and Gaudreau. And I said, well, first off, Larkin's not a free agent. He's got a year left. And Larkin, what's the incentive for Detroit to trade Dylan Larkin? And if anything, they'll probably try to extend him once he becomes eligible for an extension. I think in January he might. No, I think he's available. He's eligible for an extension this summer, being he's got 1 year left. But there's no need for, if anything, I think the only way Yzerman is trading Dylan Larkin is if next trade deadline, two criteria: the Red Wings are out of it, and he still hasn't signed. Then maybe he thinks about trading Dylan Larkin. But right now, I think Dylan Larkin's off the table. I don't see any reason for the Wings to move him.
I don't see any reason why Steve Yzerman would move his top center right now. And I think there's more of a reason for him to try to improve on the team. Q Suter is okay. It's a matter of still getting some more people in there that can do what they're going to do. This was a topic of conversation a while ago, and I'll bring it up right now because Dee brought up that the Rangers development coaches are terrible. Yeah, the Rangers have a problem in the development, but they've been bringing up the development coaches because it's Jed Ortmeyer, Tanner Glass, and Matt Hunwick. And if you look at other organizations that are doing a great job right now, like say, for instance, the Florida Panthers, it's Gregory Campbell. So you're going to get a lot of guys that now, by the way, Gregory Campbell son of Colin Campbell, if I recall correctly. Then he's got an eye from a coach. He's got an eye from an executive. He's got an eye from, and Colin Campbell wasn't exactly a great player by any means, but is sometimes those who can't teach, and sometimes they make the decisions. It is sensible for the fans to say this, because we haven't seen a great development from any forward on the New York Rangers in a long time. Like a great forward. We're talking about Tony Amonte. Chris Kreider is the first New York Rangers drafted 40 goal scorer since Tony Amonte. And I believe 30 as well. So it says everything you needed to know. And
I got
those who can't teach, there you go.
Got a couple of minutes before I'm going to jump off, Mark. So I'll take a couple.
No problem. We're gonna take a couple more minutes ourselves.
One thing I thought was interesting also on the All Things Islander page there. I mean, it just proves there's idiots in every fan base, and if you're a Ranger fan, believe me, there are a lot of your fellow Ranger fans that are complete fools in all fan bases. But there was a fan that is saying that the Islanders should trade Barzal. It's like, what do you like? Yeah, you could get a lot for him, but why? But why would you ever do that? Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
First, let me just say,
Hold on 1 second,
David, 100% right on this. Let me go back to what your comment is. I don't know why you would think about trading Matt Barzal, because the guy's your franchise center. Now, that's one reason why I think like one of our last broadcasts, by the way, it's great to be back, guys. That the Islanders could use Brock Nelson as the number one center. You need a Matt Barzal. You need the explosive talent. You need somebody that's going to be able to do all these things. And now I think, especially minus Jordan Eberle, Matt Barzal's got to find that line mate that he's got chemistry with. This is where we get into that debate about Ryan Strome, because there's chemistry with Ryan Strome and Artemi Panarin. The problem I have with Artemi Panarin, and there's sometimes the talk about, it's going to upset Panarin. Well, Artem Anisimov had career years with Artemi Panarin. And a matter of fact, Patrick Kane as well. Then he went to Columbus and still had career years with whoever the center was. And he was an MVP candidate playing with Ryan Strome. He looked just as good with Andrew Kopp when Kopp was centering those few games minus Strome. So I don't want to hear that, that's my center, don't trade him. You're going to have to, guys get moved all the times. And by the way, Chris, you're right about that, because the Islanders are not in a rebuild. They don't need to trade Matt Barzal. Now, let's say, for instance, because I'm rooting for anarchy, that the Edmonton Oilers are swept again in the first round. You think maybe Connor McDavid might ask out early on Draisaitl? If that's the case, do you trade Matt Barzal to go over there? Hands down, I would. And because his contract's coming up next year, it runs out. And then you got to re-sign him again. So who knows what his price is going to be. So go on from there. Now, again, it's going to take much more than just Matt Barzal for any of those guys. Still don't know if there's ever a package for Connor McDavid that really would work. So, but if Wayne Gretzky get traded, anyone can. Gretzky was traded twice. Yep, Mike, we had a video about this about a few months ago, and it was ridiculous then. Because if that's the case, you got two guys that just took the culture of a losing organization. Sorry, guys, they were a losing organization at the time. They're not now. And now they're a draw for free agents. They got a brand new building. They got an owner that cares. You got a GM that's competent and one of the best coaches of all time. Where's the problem? You had one bad year. Boo-hoo. I know New York fans can be fickle, but still. And we can be fickle, guys. That's what we could always be. I wish McDavid comes to the Rangers. Oh, that would be so great. Yeah, I haven't seen it out of Kirby Doc. I I haven't seen it. I've seen him make some great plays. I've seen Filipino make some great plays, but haven't really seen the explosiveness that I thought out of Kirby Doc. Which, by the way, Kirby Doc, that was the guy that some fans were saying, "Oh, the Rangers should pass on Kako for Doc." Okay, how's that working out? Yeah. Nick, I'm gonna highlight this one. This is 100% right. This isn't even the worst season, not only for Islander fans, but any New York fan. I mean, hell, the '92 Mets is always the barometer for a team that spent so much trying to elevate their expectations and ended up falling flat on their face. And a matter of fact, I mean, Islander fans have had to deal with much worse. Never mind the ownership struggles of the '90s, between Pickett, between Milstein and Gluckstern, between John Spano. John Spano, if he actually had money, would have been a great owner for the Islanders. I like this one, Granny. We're gonna go to that one. Matthew Boldy. Man, he looks good. He looks good. And a lot of going back to what Chris G is saying right here, the Kirby Doc thing, a lot of people thought he had the intangibles to be the next Jonathan Taves, who, by the way, he was playing with. So there you go. And we got Anthony back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got a phone.
I mean, but you saw the 30 for 30 on John Spano, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And you know what? As Mike is saying, he almost pulled it off.
He did.
Because here's the thing. It seemed like a perfect fit for everybody involved. The fans wanted it. The players wanted it. The NHL wanted it. Problem is the guy had no money. So that's
well. They always say, right? Fake it till you make it. He literally almost faked it until he made it. So,
but Anthony. But the best part about it is he is probably one of the reasons why the Islanders never even had to worry about relocation, because he renegotiated the TV contract.
Yeah, he did. He did.
So,
yeah,
the next Taves.
Oh man.
Marco Rossi's up, by the way.
He's what?
Is he up for Minnesota?
He was at one point. I think he went back down. Him and Boldy got, I think, recalled at the same time, and kind of Boldy, really took off and produced. He stayed up, but Rossi was really producing at a good clip in the AHL. So he's definitely going to be a big part of their future. But Boldy has been in the NHL producing really well for them.
This was one of those things, Anthony. I got to get your opinion with this as well, because I thought this was stupid when I heard it. A lot of Ranger fans, when they heard about Lias Andersson throwing his silver medal into the stands,
I remember
this
that.
guy is going to be the future captain.
Yeah,
and you can see that right now with LA. So it's just no. I thought, I heard that and thought he was a petulant child.
Yeah, so did I.
So a lot of people had that. Oh, he's not going to accept losing as a thing.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Losing is part of the game. Makes you better. Yeah. So,
by the way, Boldy 30 points in 37 games from Minnesota. So that's pretty good.
Boldy is American, right?
Yes, he's born in Massachusetts.
Yeah, he was on the USA team. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I needed to confirm that before I said it, because after all, as Chris G said, and I have to agree with 100%, I've said a lot of stupid shit in my time.
Yeah, so, I don't know how Minnesota is going to afford Kevin Fiala going forward.
Yeah, but you know what? The fact that he's an RFA,
yes,
is exactly a good thing for Minnesota,
Well, yeah,
So at
because
least they can get something back.
yeah,
But
he's a controllable asset.
yeah, and by the way, Granny, I got to watch more of him as you're mentioning that. But
But I just wanted to quickly before I go, I just wanted to quickly get back to what I was before my wife called me. About the Barzell comment. It's like, um, I just don't. It just doesn't make sense to me because again, I get that you would be able to get a lot for him, but the Islanders plan on contending for a cup next year, and there's no need to move him. Like I just think people are frustrated because he I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they don't score enough. He doesn't score enough for the liking. We got to remember he's a playmaker more than a goal scorer. And you don't trade a guy who skates as well as he does. We've talked about this before. He's easily top 3 skaters in the league. McDavid, McKinnon, Barzell, McCarr. I mean, they're a step above everybody else, and his edge work is the best I've ever seen. So you don't move a kid like that with his talent. You
let me
put
throw
him,
this out at you because this is what I talked about when you were on that phone call, which was that let's say Edmonton it gets knocked out in the first round, swept again. They got to make a decision. They say either McDavid or Draisaitl. Let's say it's Draisaitl because that's the one that makes a little bit more logical sense. Barzell, his contract comes up after next year, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Is he still an RFA? He's a UFA.
Yeah, no, RFA.
He's an RFA.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then that's even better for the Islanders because then the Islanders then have a little bit more leverage.
Mm-hmm.
So then they could trade him, say, for instance, with somebody for Draisaitl and upgrade from there. And I would not want to see the Islanders then, by the way, because
that's why when people say players are untouchable, it's like anybody's tradable, but there are certain things that are fantasy land. Yeah, so Islander fans will say, well, the same Islander fans will say Barzell's untouchable. But yes, of course, obviously, if the Oilers offered McDavid or Draisaitl for Barzell, you do it. But again, that's fantasy land. So that's why untouchable category still exists for teams because there's a certain player you're always going to trade someone for, but it's not even worth talking about because it's not going to happen. So with that
it's
said,
sort of like, do you trade away the prospect for the guy who's guaranteed, who's already been doing it?
So with that said, yes, Barzell's untouchable because the Oilers would never offer that. So that's why it's not even worth discussing of who you would trade Barzell before because it's not it's not going to happen. It's just not. Like I said, it's
not going to happen. I don't know what the Oilers are going to do after they flop out of whatever round they are. But I'm praying for the Oilers versus Vegas in the first round. Oh my God.
In the first round, how would that be? Oh, if they finish 2-3, I don't see that being possible at this point. Yeah,
and then Vegas comes back with their entire roster, and it's circumventing the salary cap, and then somehow everybody clicks right away because that's the other thing. Tampa Bay did it with Kucherov, but they knew who he was. They were able to click. They don't know if Eichel's going to work with Stone.
Vegas is 3 points behind Dallas right now, and I think they're 3 points behind LA. I think 88, 82, 85.
80 is Vancouver's 82.
So
Vegas 85 with a game in hand on LA.
So they're 3 points behind LA and Dallas. I don't know if they're going to do it. I mean, they might, but
I think they catch LA.
Yeah. I would if Vegas misses the playoffs because they've always been a team that's been patient when now they trade a lot of their former first round picks. I would think it'd be if they missed the playoffs and they did something silly like they traded Brandon Brisson out of Michigan and for another quick fix. I could see that happening because they're instant gratification with that team. Pacioretty, Eichel, Stone, it just goes on and on. But they're in trouble, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, they should just kind of accept that everything didn't go their way this year. Just hopefully they make the playoffs and make some kind of a run.
Yeah.
And if you don't win the Stanley Cup, you don't win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
I forgot which one of us predicted Vegas over.
I had Colorado. All
right, then maybe it was me that predicted Vegas.
I think my final in the offseason before the year started, I think it was Colorado beating the Islanders. So I think I had Colorado in the Stanley Cup Finals.
Well, we got a lot of time left. We still have a month left to go in the season. It's all going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Do you want to fill in this question though for Dave? He doesn't understand why people hate Vegas so much.
I mean, I guess it's because they always seem to get the guy that's out there. Like they got Stone, they got Pacioretty, they got Eichel. I think some people feel like the expansion draft rules were unfair and they got gifted a good team and all that. But I don't hate Vegas though. I'm with David.
I actually don't hate Vegas in any way. But I've said this about a lot of teams. I actually don't hate the Maple Leafs because I love to make a joke that they haven't won a first round series in 20 years. But at 19, I know what it really is. But it's just one of those things that Vegas is. They're sort of that team that got it all right away. They got to the finals, and then after that, there's a feeling of entitlement, I think, around the league with a lot of fans.
Yeah,
like how dare you be this good so quick?
Mm-hmm.
And right now, Seattle is kind of going, oh, that I wish that was us.
Yeah, well, Seattle, the difference is a lot of GMs smartened up this time, and they didn't make trades like the side deals like the Panthers made with Marchessault and Smith. And that's the big difference. Teams got smart, like I'm sure, I would imagine, Lou probably, maybe I would hope at least said, okay, if you take Bailey instead of Eberle, we'll give you X. And, maybe Seattle just said no, but there was no side deals to be made. And I think that's exactly what happened to Seattle.
And this is a little bit true too, what he's saying right here, that they basically fired Gallant.
Yeah.
But that's also the nature of hockey, guys.
Yeah.
Gallant was done way dirtier by the Florida Panthers.
Yeah, no, I know.
And Marc-Andre Fleury, who went there and added, I think he made his Hall of Fame career in Vegas.
Yeah, I
understand he was for Penguin, great, but he cemented himself as a Hall of Famer in Vegas.
He brought immediate respect back to that franchise. Well, to that franchise, I should say. But speaking of Fleury, actually, if he decides to play next season, Casey DeSmith is an unrestricted free agent. I think you know where I'm headed with this. I think maybe he ends his career in Pittsburgh and, he splits with, or just, I should say, backs up Tristan Jarry. I think that's how he ends his career. That's just my.
Let's be honest, he's splitting.
Well, yeah.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. That's just the way I see
it. I mean, he usually falls apart in the playoffs, but if you look at the goalie statistics, Jarry has slowly started to drop in several statistics to where he was at one point. So,
hey, quick question, because Randy put this up here. I haven't heard anything that the players aren't allowed to play in the playoffs. Some of the college guys, it might be because they're not playing in the playoffs because Buffalo ain't going, Philly ain't going, Seattle ain't going.
I'm trying to think, actually, that year that Lee signed with the Islanders, I don't think he played in the series against Pittsburgh that year in the shortened year. So maybe I don't know. I'd have to check on that.
Yeah, I think they should be allowed to play, but unless you see a provision in that, because I completely did not think that was possible.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be doing some research on that before as soon as we're off, and we're actually going to be signing off in about a minute. Yeah, we'll take another question.
I'm gonna head off. I'm gonna head out now.
All right, then we're gonna do it now. Then
Ella gets off the bus. So
yeah, because Makar played in the playoffs. We talked about Chris Kreider, and everybody. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. It has been fantastic being back here. We are looking to try to get a day where Philk and all three of us can be on. So thank you guys. And don't forget, always like, share, and subscribe. And we will see you guys again soon. And gonna go up there. Guys, thank you very much. Because again, it's great to be back.